Welcome to episode 18 of Take It EV, your EV listening podcast. I'm your co-host Phil, joined by your host Greg, and yes, I am back again. So, hi Greg.
Hello.
Hello. So, it's been a few months since I've been on, so episode 18, but the last episode I was on was episode 12, looking back at my previous introduction. So, you've been busy with guests and other shows?
Yeah, it's been quite a busy show. I was trying to get loads of people interviewed from different aspects of EV world, and just share the things that are happening around their lives and their businesses with listeners. What have you been up to yourself?
I think the last time I was on was just before we went into lockdown. So obviously that's dominated everything that's been going on the last few months for pretty much everyone. I've always worked from home anyway, and I believe you do most of the time. So hasn't been a major impact on my work. But I was travelling a lot as well before, so that's obviously changed. But I now seem to have a lot more stuff going on at home as well. So definitely keeping me busy, but I can't really complain too much compared to what's going on out there. How's it been for you?
Apart from the trying to find some new clients or new work. Since I've finished some of the work during the lockdown, like you said, I've been working mostly from home by choice prior to the lockdown anyway. So the benefits are actually having a wife at home. She's usually just sitting in the office next to me, basically occupying one of my other desks, and not having to stress about travel and and all that jazz.
It's definitely freed us up from worrying about some things. That's true.
Yes, yeah. It's amazing how much time is actually spent trying to negotiate, who's going to pick up who from the station and what we're going to do in the evening because the train is late or whatnot. Not having that is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to get to some news later on, but not much else has changed.
Yeah, well, I'm interested to cover that.
You said, it seems we have a visitor.
I've got a story I want to tell as well because something happened in that intervening time. I actually moved house end of last year. I may have mentioned that before. And I won't go into... There's a quite long story leading up to that, which I won't bore you with, but suffice to say that it was actually quite stressful right up until the last minute. I think it was 3 days to go before our moving date, and we still hadn't exchanged contracts. So getting planned for having a charger fitted and moving energy providers all sort of happened last minute in December. Got caught up in all the Christmas holidays, so we didn't actually get our charger fitted until, in fact, I think they fitted it in March, just before we went into lockdown. So we were lucky in a way, but that was 3 months without a dedicated charge point. So we were doing the old, training the charger through the window trick that actually we've been doing for over a year before that anyway. So that wasn't ideal, but it was okay. So we got our charger fitted, and we actually went for the vehicle to grid solution from OVO. So this is a vehicle to grid trial, so it's free for us. We do get some cash back as we export back to the grid. It's not a lot, and I think it just about offsets how much more expensive OVO is than our previous provider. But we wanted to give it a try, so we had that installed. That also involved we had to have a smart meter fitted, have our meter tails upgraded, so that we could have a fuse upgraded to 100 amps. And we did all that, got the charger fitted. That's been working fairly well as a charger, although I'll come to that in a moment. In terms of exporting back to the grid, there has this thing called Kaluza mode. So Kaluza was the name of the sub-company that actually runs the vehicle to grid trial. And they have an app. And you can see in there, when it's importing to the car, when it's exporting back out. And the idea, of course, is to, give it the best opportunity to pick the times that it's going to be cheaper to import and export, and when you're going to get the most value, when the grid's going to get the most benefit. So we try to let it do that as much as possible. So the few weeks we had before a lockdown, we were taking the kids to school. That's when we hit our first problem. Not really a problem, just something not ideal, which is that you in the app you can set it up to say, right, I want the battery to be ready at a certain amount of charge by a certain time. So typically people who are going to be commuting to work, they want it ready first thing in the morning, and that's true of us for the morning school run. So that was fine. We set it to say, I want 95% or whatever battery. Trouble is, the school is now so far away since we've moved that by the time we've done the morning school run, we could possibly do one more school run, but we don't like to chance it. So we need a bit more charge during the day before we can do the afternoon school run. So we really need that sort of ready time twice during the day, but the app only gives us the opportunity to do it once. Now you can put the charger in boost mode, where it just acts like a normal dumb charger or reasonably smart charger, so it will just charge continuously without being in closer mode. So we can do that, but of course then you're not getting the full benefit of the vehicle to grid experience. It's a minor thing, I suppose, but there is that. But then, no, that's the whole purpose of this being a trial, to find out these sorts of things. I have reported that back. They are apparently taking it into consideration, but I think I'm a bit of an outlier in that, so I'm not holding my breath. Apart from that, though, it's been pretty good. I don't think we've really got as much out of it as I'd hoped, but that's probably mostly because we only have the 24 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf, and it apparently really needs at least the 30 kilowatt hour to have the capacity to really benefit from those exports. We're doing our little bit and participating in the trial. Sorry, you were saying something there.
No, I said interesting because the average British household, I think, uses about 4 to 6 kilowatts during the day. So you'd think that 24 kilowatt hour storage would be fine, even if you just use half of it. That's 2 houses essentially worth of electricity. Yeah,
we're definitely seeing it. I mean, we're seeing some export credits on our bill. Unfortunately, the way it works is a little bit complicated and not fully represented on the bill, because before you export to the grid, obviously you export to the house. So some of the power that the house is using will be coming from the battery, but that's not really recorded anywhere, at least that's visible to us. So I believe Kaluza, who are now actually folded back into OVO, I think, they have that data. But when I emailed them to ask if I can get a report, that they said that that's not something that they can make available. So I don't really know how much is being exported back into the house. And because we've only just moved in, we can't sort of look back over previous energy bills and try to make a guess at it either. So
yeah,
we're a bit in the dark about that. So I only see what excess is then exported back to the grid. So that may just be the tip of the iceberg.
Interesting. I should. There's another person that I know of who's got the same system. The plug seeker, and I must ask him about that, because it would be interesting actually to have him and yourself on the podcast together and talk about the V2G experience as a separate thing, because he talked to me about it a while ago when it was brand new, like when it was just a initial trial. I'm sure there's more people now with that equipment installed in the UK who could contribute more data.
Yeah, no, we should do that.
Yeah. One thing. Well, a couple of things actually stopped me from doing it. One of them was the fact that we knew that we're not going to have a CHAdeMO car as the next one. So, and you have to commit yourself to like a couple of years of the trial time with them. So that's the downside. And obviously, it's not their fault. It's the fact that CCS as a charging standard doesn't have the bidirectional component to it, just like CHAdeMO does. So you can't do vehicle to grid on a CCS equipped car.
Yeah, I think you covered that quite well in the last episode.
Yeah, and the other reason is they didn't have any, because we have solar panels, they didn't have any integration with that. So that was a bummer as well. And I'm sure they're going to work it out because, it just doesn't make any sense otherwise. If somebody's got solar panel, you do want to store that energy as a first priority, if possible, during the day. I mean, it's a benefit to everybody, including them, because they in the end they just have to give you a little bit of money for it, but they didn't cover the cost of the installation of the solar panels, so it's a benefit to, like, everyone can benefit basically in that scenario. So that those were the two major reasons why we didn't get it. But
so we don't have solar panels yet, but that is the plan a bit longer term. And I believe when we were looking into it, by that time they were saying that they did handle it, but
okay.
I didn't look into it too deeply. I think there were still some limitations, but there's still time for them to iron that out.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds like a. Well, let's see how that works out, because you're talking about plugging in your PHEV car to boost it up, right? Not the Leaf.
So the vehicle to grid system is just for the Leaf.
Okay.
It's a little bit murky whether you can actually use it for any other vehicle. Some places like absolutely not, only for the Leaf or only for the vehicle that you signed up with. And other places said no, it's fine. As far as I can tell, when you're in Kaluza mode, that is optimized for the vehicle that it's been registered for, and is potentially dangerous to use with anything else, at least to cover themselves, I imagine. At worst, it's not going to be very efficient. But in boost mode, where it's acting pretty much like a standard charger, I believe you can use it with pretty much anything else that can take the CHAdeMO plug. So I should be able to use it with the PHEV, but so far I haven't. I've still just been trailing the cable out the window because my additional normal smart charger hasn't been installed yet. That one did get pushed back to just after lockdown started, so still waiting for them to get back to me for a new installation date on that. But it hasn't been too much of a hassle because we haven't really been using the cars anyway, so I'm not too worried yet. We did have one other problem, though, with the vehicle to grid charger. And to be fair, put this into context, it is a trial. They do so up front, expect various things to not quite work as you would like, and to be even without service for periods of time. We knew that going in. But last week, it just stopped working. So no warning, you plug it in, the light comes on, but it doesn't charge. And so I did get back in touch with Kaluza, and after a few days, it took them to reply, because I suspect they're down to a skeleton staff right now. They just suggested power cycling the whole thing, which involves turning off at the consumer unit. And it looks like there is no specific switch on the consumer unit that I can turn off, so I'm just going to have to turn the whole thing off. So I'm just waiting for a time when I can actually turn off the whole house and turn it back on again, just so I can isolate the vehicle to grid charger. So I haven't done that yet, so I don't know whether it's going to be anything deeper or if that's all it needed. But that's the only problem we've had so far, and I say that's in keeping with what we were prepared for, so I'm okay with that.
Reboot Your House sounds like an episode title.
Oh yes, 2020. Now you have to reboot your house.
Have you tried forcing an unexpected reboot?
Ironically, if I was living the traditional modern lifestyle, it wouldn't be so much of an issue because we don't have laptop computers, but my main machine is a desktop computer these days, and I tend to have some long-running stuff going on there, and I need to make sure I can turn that down. That's the main bottleneck. And the kids watching TV.
Well, just do it at night then,
Well, yeah, you would think.
Wake up super early in the morning, they're asleep anyway, so...
In fact, maybe I'll try it now. If you don't hear from it... No, just kidding. So that's my story of vehicle to grid so far. Not terribly exciting, but I should add actually, one thing I didn't mention was obviously the background to all this is we have been in lockdown, so we haven't been using the cars much. So that Leaf has basically just been acting as a battery on wheels. We've made some small journeys in it, but it's effectively just been there to act as a battery for the grid and for the house. So I was expecting to see much more of an effect on the build than we have done. So I'm not sure what that means yet. Maybe it just means that, as I say, being the 24 kilowatt hour Leaf, it's not going to have as big an impact as one with a bigger battery. But I'm content that we are at least helping with the trial.
Yeah. So it is interesting, and I think vehicle to grid is very much needed. This is why I'm again surprised that the CCS does not include the bidirectional protocol in their specification. I've heard that they will in the near future, or it's in the next draft or whatever. Unfortunately, many of these things, these standards are closed, so you can't just download the specification yourself and have a look at it. You have to give them some money to do it, and that's a bit pants, but that's the way it is. Same thing with CHAdeMO.
So fortunately, both my cars do have CHAdeMO, and my next change of cars is probably going to be the PHEV. So we'll keep the Leaf for foreseeable future. So I'm okay with that for now. But yeah, looking to the future, even for me, do look forward to a time where everything's going to be much more standardized. But that's the price we pay as relatively early adopters.
That is true. Speaking of interviews that I've done on the last couple of episodes, I spoke to some people who know a little bit more about the charging than I do, and they were throwing around different ideas, including having an AC. So your charger is basically a DC, AC/DC charging unit. Kind of like your rapid charger at the petrol station, or service station. Whereas the because the battery is obviously DC, direct current, and in the house we have AC. But some people think that it might actually be beneficial to just have that built into the car, so the car will actually have the ability to just spew out 240 volts AC. For the benefit of vehicle to grid, because cars already have the AC to DC circuitry, and they do have the DC to AC circuitry, because that's what drives your motor in a car. So why not just have the vehicle to grid that way? It's an interesting idea, and then that way any car could potentially have it. But I still had, well, I don't know. In my opinion, the CCS bidirectional standard should be, for the most part, just a matter of upgrading software in the cars, because as soon as you turn on the DC charging mode, essentially you're exposing the battery terminals in your charger port, so you can you have a big battery on the wheels, basically. You just have to tell the car it's okay for the power to flow the other way. And I'm not sure if all cars out there actually measure that, whether the electricity flows one way or the other. I'm sure if you did the actual tests, so you tell the car, I'm going to charge the battery, and then you actually started taking the power off the battery, some of them would just be like, all right. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I am probably wrong. It's probably I'm sure it's a BMS's job to actually look after the battery.
Yeah, I'll leave that to other people to experiment with.
No, by no means. I'm not telling people. You try it, tell me, but you just do it under under your own risk. I don't take any responsibility for this. Well, that's all I have to say about V2G. I think, well, I've got a lot more to say about it. Like, I think we all have to have, V2G is just basically a necessity for the future of the electrified transportation. We just have to have it.
Yeah, well, at least while the cost of batteries is so high, obviously you can get the standalone battery units, But that if you've already got batteries just sitting there in your car that can play the same role, then that's definitely a way to tap into that. So still transitional, I'd say, but for the foreseeable future.
I think it's just, we have to have it, to balance the grid to make it smarter and all that.
See?
Right.
Casey!
This is going to be a new segment, listeners, brace yourself. So, and this is with my terrible English. A proton, an electron, and a neutron walk into a bar. The proton orders a shot, drinks it, then takes out his wallet and pays the bartender. The electron orders a shot, drinks it, then takes out his wallet and pays the bartender. Then the neutron orders a shot, drinks it, and then takes out his wallet. And the bartender stops him and says, "Wait, for you, no charge."
I see what you did there. Of course, he could have paid with his electron card.
So I've heard Tesla's done a new thing. They've achieved something.
Now this is interesting.
Yeah, so I saw this news earlier this week that Tesla have set a new EPA record. So EPA, for those that don't know, is icosapent enoic acid, which is an omega-3 fatty acid. So it's a new fuel type. Actually, that might be wrong. What is EPA anyway?
European something agency? I don't know. Environment Protection Agency, sorry.
Putting you on the spot there. Basically, it's just a standardized way, or recognized way of saying what the mileage, what the range of an electric vehicle is. And doesn't necessarily reflect real-world driving, but it's one way that you can measure one car's range against another. And some of the vehicles have been pushing that number up and up over the years, and Tesla have now set a new record of 402 miles, I believe. So beating their previous one by 20%, which is quite something. That's on the Model S. So the new version of the Model S came out this year, has a 402 mile range, according to the EPA. I believe that they were previously tested and it came in just under 400. 396 or something like that. I didn't write it down. And Elon actually said that they didn't do it right. They'd left the door open and some keys in the ignition, and it was all according to their logs that they said they're proof of. I don't know. I only have Elon's word for it, but they retested it and it's come out to pretty much exactly what he predicted. So whichever way you look at it, I think that's good news. Range is definitely something that I know you have different feelings on this, Greg, but for a lot of people, that's definitely still a sticking point. So always good to see those numbers going up.
Yeah, it is great. Range is one of those things that is one, I don't know, I don't think people care as much about it as they say they do, but it's a worry that people have. Everyone's afraid of charging, and how long that takes. So, yeah, having a car with 400 mile range, that's great. Obviously, the trouble with all these EPA and such ratings is that they're not actually discharging they're not actually driving that distance. They're I don't know exactly what they're doing, but there's a mixture of they drive basically around the track at different speeds, and the testing grounds have different bits to them. So there's some bits that you drive up the hill for a certain distance, and there's some bits where you drive, you turn around quite a lot. So there's sort of, bendy bits basically. There's a track like that in the UK, in Millbrook, I think is the place. Something like that. It's somewhere in the Midlands. If you look up UK test grounds or test drive test grounds or something like that, everyone tests their vehicles in there. And you can actually, whenever they have an exhibition, you can actually drive on the bits of it yourself, because that's where the car parking is. So you just as a part of the experience, you basically just drive into the actual test grounds, which is fun. You don't do, because they have some bits that are cobbled a bit funny, and to test the suspension and all that. So obviously you don't drive through that, but you drive through stretches of the track where you can actually open up the car if you want to. So yeah, the I don't know what the EPA cycle actually entails, but I don't think again that they discharge the car properly. So if you drive the car for 2 hours, say, under different conditions, and then you leave it for 5 minutes with the the main battery running and the heat pumps or whatever are running at full blast, that's going to take a bit of juice out of the battery, and that's going to impact the actual overall score. So it doesn't surprise me that people like Tesla actually have a very close look at the car that they handed over to the people who do the actual test. Kind of makes sense. But yeah, it's good. It's good to know nonetheless. Actually, that's a nice transition for me to the next segment about physics.
Oh yes.
Yeah, it's something that a teacher at school, I think, told me when I was a wee boy. Said to me that there's only one law in the world, and that's the law of physics. Everything else is there's only one law in the world that's enforceable, and that's the law of physics. And funnily enough, Elon Musk actually tweeted the other day. And he said, "Physics is the law. Everything else is a recommendation." I couldn't agree more. And it's funny that we just spoke about the EPA and the new record. And obviously, there's going to be loads of cars coming up from Tesla and I'm sure other manufacturers that will try to beat that 400-mile mark, because that's been for a long time, very long time. That's been like a sort of a final frontier for the for some of the naysayers or people who were resisting EVs for a while. And of course, like we're talking about the top end range-wise cars, so they're not the cheapest ones, obviously. But you can get cars now for the price of less than a Range Rover, and those seem to be very popular. That can do 250 plus miles, so we're not far off yet. Anyway, so on the subject of physics and the range, it's actually a good job that we were talking about both of those things. I had an exchange recently with somebody on Twitter, and there was a talk about the Tesla's new EPA record, and also I wanted to chip in because never mind that the car can do say 400 miles, but people are afraid as well of or worried about the recharge time, especially when they're on the road. And obviously we all do 400 miles every day, multiples of, especially on the weekends when we drive to Scotland and back. This is a joke, obviously. And I had ever since the 400-mile sort of mark became close to being something of a possibility. I had some people telling me that actually they need about 700 to be comfortable with EVs, and obviously every week or every month, somebody who's new to EVs, especially, or the journalists who just start to cover it and want to have something positive, they talk about this great new technology that just somebody works in the lab, and it's just a matter of years before it reaches our vehicles, where we can drive 700 miles and charge the car in 5 minutes. So I just in line with Elon Musk's tweet and my own experiences and me being an engineer, I thought, well, let's see, let's calculate, let's just do the numbers, let's do the physics, right? And this isn't going to be too boring, but so bear with me. But for a car to do 700 miles, you'd need, for a car Tesla Model S range where it can do, it's very efficient. You need about 175 kilowatt hours, battery pack. The one that can do 400 miles, I believe, has 100 kilowatt hour battery pack. But don't quote me on that. So to charge a car with a 175 kilowatt hour battery pack in 5 minutes, you need to pump basically 35 kilowatt hours into that battery pack every minute. And I'm talking from 0 to, or from 1% to 99%. So the charging speed would have to be 2100 kilowatts. That's 2.1 megawatts. No gigawatts, megawatts. So let's just say, because where physics comes in. So when you turn up at your I keep on saying petrol station, at your service station or your DC fast charger or rapid charger, it will, there'll be a certain voltage and the amperage, so the current that actually goes into the car. And again, I had an episode about that if you want to find out. But it's basically, your how much water you pump through a pipe every second, right? So most cars these days have 400 volts battery packs, but let's be generous and say this is going to be an 800 volts battery pack. So for a 2.1 megawatts average, so not a peak, but on average to pump that in, let's just say, again, be generous and say from the moment you plug in to the moment your car is fully charged, this is how much you're going to get as a constant, which will not happen, but obviously let's just imagine that. That's 2,625 amps on 800 volts to achieve 2.1 megawatts. Just to put that in perspective, when you charge your Nissan Leaf my Nissan Leaf with 30 kilowatt hour battery pack, it kind of achieves a peak 120 amps at 400 volts. So you basically have 20 times the amperage and twice the voltage. The voltage doesn't really matter that much, but to deliver that much, 20 times more amps, you need basically a 20 times bigger pipe, essentially. So imagine the cable that it will take to deliver that power. I had a bit of a thinking about it, and thought, well, there must be a way to do this. And obviously, when there's a will, there's a way. So in engineering, there's a very good, it's a very good approach to problems that have a very big sort of scale, and that's to divide and conquer, right? To splice it up. Mm-hmm. So you could have 10 cables, right, at the same time, or 10 wires essentially, delivering each one of them 10th of this power, and then have the battery pack divided because it's so massive. You could have smaller bits of that battery pack and charge them individually, but you still end up with a humongous plug. Like, it's literally, don't know if anyone ever seen the electric buses that have the recharging stations where you have like a massive plug just descending on the roof of the bus and charging it for a few minutes. That's I think those charging cables are 500 kilowatts. So imagine 5 of those basically, or 4 of those to deliver that much power. Again, this is to charge the car in 5 minutes. I just don't see that happening. I'm sorry, but and to end on a positive note, I don't think there are too many ICE cars currently on the road that can do 700 miles on a single fill or single tank. I know some manufacturers say that they can do 1,000, but I have my doubts. So well, just like Elon says again, physics is the law. Everything else is a recommendation. So I'm sorry, but I don't think that's going to ever happen, and it doesn't have to. We don't need a car that recharges in 5 minutes. If you drive 700 miles or even 500 miles, you need to have a rest for at least an hour to be safe on the road again. And if you have kids, Phil can tell you, you're gonna have to stop much more often.
Oh yes. So that got me thinking. Actually, we may be able to kill two birds with one stone here, if you pardon the expression. But one of the problems I have with my Outlander PHEV is that unlike the Leaf, which has the charge point at the front of the car, which is perfect when I just drive in to the house and there's the charging cable right in front of me, the Outlander has it at the back, where a traditional petrol cap would be. Which sort of makes sense, but for me, that means I've got to reverse into a really awkward driveway to reverse the car up to the house before I can start charging it. But that's just my house, and other people have the opposite problem. So what if you had charging points at both ends? And you could use one or the other, or both at the same time for double the charging speed. There we go.
Ooh. Well, I believe both Audi e-tron and Jaguar I-Pace, I'm not sure about the latter, but the Audi and I'm sure have charging points on both sides of the car for convenience. But I think one of them is CCS and the other one is just AC.
Right.
But there's nothing stopping them from putting the cable, like the beefy cable on both sides of the car.
Well, I should have to go back in time and patent that idea.
But it's interesting sort of foresight on the Nissan's part to have the charging port in the front of the car.
Yeah, I think more often than not that's more convenient, but I know some other people do have the opposite view.
I mean, it forces certain styling on the car because you have to have enough space to have that flap. But these days, most other cars that I can think about also have the maybe not most, but I can certainly think about a couple of cars that actually have the charging port in the front. One of them is going to be my new car.
So you're getting a new car?
I know. How smooth was this segue?
It's a segue.
Indeed. So we're getting a new car, and my old car, my 30 kilowatt-hour Nissan Leaf, is going to be, or it is up for sale. If you if you're interested in owning a piece of history, get in touch. techiedev@gmail.com. I can send you the details. But basically, we've had a Nissan Leaf for 4 years now. It's done slightly over 50,000 miles, just a smidge over. It's been driven, in many conditions and in many places in the UK. I've been to Wales. I've been to Scotland. They do go to Scotland from Kent.
Is that your daily Scottish commute?
Yes. Yeah. It served us well, but it's time to kind of move on and get something a bit more futuristic. So we had our eyes out on a couple of cars. I was kind of secretly hoping that Model Y will come to the UK by September. That's not going to happen. I know now. I was hoping they will ramp up the production and actually start manufacturing the right-hand drive. But obviously, we now know that they are going to be manufactured in Berlin, and that factory's just broke the ground. So obviously, that's not going to happen for a while. Our other choice was ID3, and it's been pushed back every so often, and my biggest disappointment is the fact that nobody's told us how much the cost is going to be. They say that this will be, affordable car for the masses because it's Volkswagen. That's literally in their name. But I think that's going to happen down the line. However, the first generation of the cars is, going to be fairly expensive, and I've got a thing against kind of getting the first gen of anything because it's a bit of a shaky ground, shall we say? Especially something like a car. If you imagine spending £30,000-40,000 on something that might not be perfect, I I don't think I don't feel comfortable doing that. If it was if I was a bit more wealthy, or if this was a second-hand car, second car, or if I was a famous YouTuber, then maybe. But otherwise, I can imagine there's going to be loads of new YouTube channels, just like with Tesla, but with the VW ID3 first gen, and good luck to anyone who's going to get one. I applaud you. But I still have a deposit on one, so if anyone wants to get in front of the queue, get in touch. Again, takeitev@gmail.com. But we've also put a deposit on another car, and that is the Kia e-Niro. We've put a deposit on it just kind of after driving it for a week. I felt like this is sort of the best middle ground. Technically it can do 280 miles on a single charge, according to the EPA test cycle. So that's not too bad. Some people do more, some people do less, but it's not a bad score. It's a fairly, it shits, I should say. Basically, it's got 200 brake horsepower. It doesn't, it's not a slouch. It's faster than my Nissan Leaf, basically. Let's put it this way, and it's bigger. So it's not a bad car that way. I've put a deposit on it in December last year, thinking, well, maybe if the VW thing doesn't work out, let's just have two bets on the thing. But they actually came back much earlier than we expected, and by the time you're probably going to listen to this, let me see, it's 17th of June at the moment, as we're recording this on Wednesday. On the 21st, the car is going to arrive to the garage, and I should be receiving it towards the end of the month. So, somewhere at the time between now and by the time you're listening to it, we might be actually getting a new car.
Exciting.
I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, it's not a Tesla. It doesn't blow your socks off. It's slightly cheaper than a standard range Model 3. At about £35,000 compared to the standard range standard range plus Model 3. By the time you actually get the car, you're £41,000 off, basically. They say that it's under 40,000, but it's by the time you get the delivery charge, which is well over £1,000, and other trinkets paid, you're out of 41 grand. So that's a bit high as far as I'm concerned. I was a bit disappointed by that. That was another choice, but I don't know. I like the idea of having not something that's not too flashy, but actually that still delivers. That's my sort of, that's my comfortable ground. And certainly Kia e-Niro actually fits that bill. Obviously I will test it, put it through its paces and see how it goes properly. Previously, when I had that car, I wasn't allowed to do more than a certain amount of miles within a week, so I couldn't do my usual range tests and all that, because that would, by the time you deplete the battery, you've already done 280 miles at least in that car. So that obviously restricts you in terms of the testing. Don't know what else to say about it. Apart from the fact that I couldn't get a white interior or a bright interior, I'm actually very happy with that choice. I kind of famously like my interiors to be bright. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but everyone complains about the fact that it's stains and you can see every dirt mark, and to that all I can say is like, good. I like to see, I like to see my car being dirty. I like to see what I'm cleaning. With a dark interior, you just can't see your germs, basically, or other people's germs, usually.
Well, that's all the rage these days.
Hope you put it. I should put a trigger warning in there. But I've always been a germaphobe, so I like to see the dirt. I like to know that I'm cleaning something, or that something needs cleaning. And my car after doing 50,000 miles is actually very clean inside. The only thing that actually you can see where there's a wear is the steering wheel. Obviously, it's the driver's seat as well, but there's no discoloration or anything like that. Even though I wear jeans pretty much 90% of the time, the only proper wear is on the steering wheel. But that's true for every car, I think. So
I'm not sure if this is a great advert for your old car or it's going to put people off.
I mean, it's a famous car because it's my car. I was just kidding. Single owner, somebody who knows how to take care of the EV. I mean, it's a Nissan Leaf, so obviously Nissans don't have any thermal management in terms of thermal management on the battery, other than restricting the amount of power that goes in or out of the battery. There is no active cooling or heating of the battery, unlike the Kia e-Niro is, again, pretty much, or virtually any other new EV out there will have some sort of a form of at least active cooling, if not warming up of the battery. And as far as I know, Kia e-Niro has both. So there's a loop in the 2020 model, or My 20 as they call them. There's an active cooling and heating loop on the battery pack and the other bits of the car. That obviously is a potential issue, like anything you get in any system that you design. Adding things obviously causes potential issues, but so far I think Kia e-Niro has been introduced in 2018. The first deliveries have been in 2018. As far as I know, there have not been any issues, and the battery degradation has been minimal compared to Nissan Leaf, which actually leads me to what I was just about to say. We've lost a bar recently on that car, so it's just past 85% state of health on the battery pack after 50,000 miles, which is not too bad. But that means basically that there's a visual indication on the dashboard that tells you that the battery has 11 out of 12 bars.
Well, that's Spinal Tap territory.
If you can see, the numbers all go to 11. Look, right across the board.
Yes, yeah. So it goes to 11 now. There you go.
Exactly.
How's that for a recommendation? I mean, there are some people who've been selling their Nissan Leafs 30 kilowatt hour with 50,000+ miles, and they claim that the car has 90% state of health. I do not trust that. Unless they've been driving 20 miles an hour around the block for the 50,000 miles, I just do not believe. Basically, if you buy a used Nissan Leaf, just be aware of the fact that people can trick the battery management system to thinking that the car has, or the battery is in a better state than it is, and you buy such a car and then find out after a month or a couple of weeks that the state of health dramatically goes down if you just drive a little bit here and there. And you wouldn't get that from somebody like myself who's very upfront about the car. Anyway, if you fancy yourself a Nissan Leaf, just let me know. Okay,
well, I'm looking forward to seeing your new e-Niro when you get it and when we're allowed to see each other again. But I think that's probably a wrap for this week or this month.
Yeah,
however we count it these days.
Yeah, it's funny. When we started this podcast, it was supposed to be bi-weekly, by which I meant every 2 weeks. Podcast, which obviously that's not what happened. We in the end we're just releasing one every month, which we're trying our best to actually provide some content, not just talk about the news. So hopefully this won't age too badly.
No, I don't think so. Well, I'll try and be back again soon, especially when I have more news to share.
So in about 6 episodes then.
That seems to be about the average. I'll just add, get great talking to you again, Greg, and we'll see you next time.
It was good to talk to you as well, and hopefully we can do this again in less than, or fewer than 6 episodes.
All right, well, take it easy.
Nice talking to you, Phil. Take it easy.
Take it easy.
The following was a presentation of Take It Easy podcast. All rights reserved. This podcast contains our own opinions. Hosts and guests make no guarantee to the accuracy, relevancy, completeness, and suitability of the information provided. All information provided on as-is basis. No refunds.